I'm I'm
Welcome to the
good.
Synapse Philosophy Group, and we are going to BJ Palmer. We're starting our masterpiece, volume 39, Palmer 1961. And this is the our masterpiece, and it's a great, you know, understanding of BJ Palmer and chiropractic and where they came. This is the end of the green books. And Al and I were just talking about, I mean, how much better the reading is actually when you get to this stage. And Alan had a good point. What did you say, Alan?
He had better editors.
He had better editors. And so we're going to start right here. We're in the preface, and this is from Sarasota, Florida. And we just had
We should.
DE in Sarasota, and we're doing the next one in Sarasota. And I'm speaking in April, doing one of the CE programs, which will be a lot of fun.
I
And
want to. Hey,
go ahead.
Haig. I want to annotate for folks. This was BJ's last book. He wrote this, and it was actually published after his death by David.
Right. And we're going to read this preface from David. That was going to be kind of the foreword's from David,
Yeah,
excuse me. The preface is from BJ, and the foreword
yeah.
is from David Palmer. And right, we're going to get to that. Read these
Okay.
pages, and please do so carefully, because it involves many complex and vital questions which all of us must know the ins and outs about to guard certain chiropractic potential factors for the future. We began to write our opinions, reasons into a letter. It finally grew into an article because of so many issues needing explanation. As time went on, our original article grew, broadened, enlarged, and became almost a young book. But the subject matter, in our humble opinion, was so important that we could not stop accumulating evidence, substantiating what we thought was the right thing to protect, defend, and preserve for historical mankind. As we enlarged our revised edition four times, now since, excuse me, as we enlarged our revised edition four times now since the original, it became apparent as we began to dig back into our 60 years of endeavors to provide the chiropractic principle and practice with incontrovertible evidence, and that we had researched almost every intangible, controversial angle, that we had written our evidence and proof into articles, published them into books, since have all been proven right, correct, sane, sound, and sensible by other beyond ourselves, proving that the deductions we had researched scientifically were correct, right. We then began to recall the ways, means, methods, apparati which we had used into this one article. As we recalled this item, it began to formulate into four enlarged issues. We do not propose using this fourth enlarged issue in any public manner unless, in our opinion, at some future date, it should be given publicity to strengthen the convictions of our reliable, trustworthy disciples who have in the past, are now will in the future use it to strengthen the backbone of our profession. Or if in the future we think that we should be published by us to prove to the scientific researchers that we have researched, which they are now adopting to correct their unproven research, which we have established. Time will tell us we may make, excuse me, time will tell us, tell what use we may make of this article we have. We have given this article months of preparation. We earnestly suggest you take time and study its contents very carefully, as we have done in its preparation. BJ Palmer. The man can use some commas. Let me tell you, that was all basically one run-on sentence. It really was. So we went from Stevenson. Well, we've done a lot of DD. We've gone through Stevenson's very nicely. Stevenson's writing is actually, he's very eloquent, and BJ is as well. His punctuation is different. So
the story is that BJ had a typewriter that had a continuous sheet of paper. He had a roll of paper on it that would, and he would get up. He would be awakened in the night. He would say that Innate woke him at night and dictated to him, and he would get up and just stream of consciousness type stuff out, and then somebody else later on will break it down and make it into paragraphs. So
yeah,
I mean, and I don't know the veracity of that story. I know that a number of people talk about the typewriter that way, but it's an interesting thought about how something like this comes to be, that he
yeah,
just wakes up and starts going and doesn't
yeah.
worry about what it looks like or the commas, and just it's coming through me and I'm writing it down.
Yeah. And it's that's the way it reads, really. And it's
Yeah.
free thought of his mind. And that's what he's taught us in every book since the beginning, and Dee Dee, really. But BJ was more of coming from that innate mind and letting the innate mind flow, and having your innate book next to you, and so you can write notes, an innate notepad, at night. But I've heard those stories too. And I mean, how much fun is that? It's just beautiful
Well, and
stuff.
it's absolutely what you teach. I mean, it's letting that innate flow through you
Right.
when you're adjusting. It's being in contact with that innate inner wisdom that dwells in all of us. That's part of the bigger wisdom of the universe. And if you can allow that to come through and connect with your practice members, then you're going to have that's going to be that adjustment with that special something. It's that connection, that letting that innate come through you when you're reading the book, when you're writing things down, when you're whatever you're doing, being in touch with that spirit.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Yeah, that's really nicely put, Alan. Thank you. And that's what he's saying. Get out of that educated and let it come from God. Let it spirit speak through you. And right now I was just looking at the book, Conversations with God, I think is the name of the book. And I remember Pasquale, my friend Pasquale, he gave me that book, and I think I read the first chapter, but it was just, a lot of what he talked about just made so much sense. Of allowing, he said, I just woke up and I wrote that book down from spirit onto that paper. Um, we want to make sure our spiritual guides have good punctuation, though, and add a period in there once in a while.
The one thing I wanted to do is to hold this up for a second for people that are listening to us read and don't necessarily see the text. BJ wrote in a very interesting style. He capitalized a lot of stuff,
Oh yeah,
and I don't know if this is going to show up
you
well,
can see
but if
it.
you can
Yeah,
see, there's for people that are looking, you can see that there's words that are just capitalized that he's emphasizing for
yeah.
importance. That he writes whole lines of text that are in all caps for folks.
And when you're
And so
reading it, are you supposed to
when we
scream
read it,
it?
it doesn't always come across that way. But he did a lot of his stuff was that way. For those of you who don't know,
Yeah, and that's what it makes it kind of hard to see, when you're reading text that's all in caps, like someone shouting at you, Like when I was just reading this, I was like, should I be shouting this point? Thank you for pointing
well,
that
it's funny
out.
because as I was reading and thinking about if you would have asked me to read tonight, I was ruining the
I
fact
am
that I
going
couldn't
to.
channel that I can't quite channel Fred Barge to be doing the reading.
Yeah,
Fred, for those of you who are young or don't never experienced Dr. Barge, he was our last orator in chiropractic. He was truly the definition of an orator. He had a stentorian voice, and he spoke with emphasis and gusto, and it was magnificent to listen to him discuss. There's no other way to describe it. To listen to Dr. Barge discuss philosophy, and his books certainly should be on everybody's reading list.
absolutely. And are you the doctor, doctor? You are the doctor, doctor. Freedom from Fear, extremely important book to read.
Absolutely.
The torticollis stuff is really interesting. I haven't looked through that.
Torticollis. He wrote books on technique as well as philosophy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was a third book though. You're the Doctor, Freedom from Fear, and there's another one I can't think of it at the top of my head right now. Go check it out. I have them on my shelf at my office. I was actually visualizing my shelf at my office, and I didn't see it. But, very important book. And You're the Doctor is really for us, get your game on. You're the chiropractor. You're taking care of these people. Help them know how important this is. It is an extremely important thing, chiropractic, and acting that way. And I really feel, what is that? One cause, one cure.
One cause, one cure. Are you the doctor?
Yep.
It's as simple as that, which is a
That's
discussion
another
of a
one.
text by BJ. That's a discussion of a text by BJ, and Life Without Fear.
Yeah, it's good to. I don't the one with the safety pin on there. I don't have that one. What is that one again? Just put that up again. Do you mind?
It's as simple as that and more.
It's as simple as that. That's the one. I've heard of it. I just never had that one. So I got to add
That's
that one to my
volume.
collection
He calls
soon.
it volume 8.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Dr.
There's.
Barge. So here's just as an aside for you, and a little ego trip. I'm afraid is Dr. Barge. A funny story. He appointed me to the seat to my first appointment to a seat to fill a seat on the RA for International Chiropractic Association. I'm sitting in my office one day, and I hadn't been in practice for that long, maybe a couple of years. And my CA calls me on the rings me back in my office and says, um, "There's a Dr. Barge on the phone." And I'm like, he was a god to me at that point, right?
Yeah.
And I said,
Oh my
"Come on,
gosh.
it's a friend, it's some friend of mine calling to prank me, right?" And I picked up the phone. And I was very polite. I said, "Hello, this is Dr. Alan Lichter," and he says, "Dr. Lichter, this is Dr. Barge. It's been recommended that I appoint you to a seat on the Representative Assembly of the International Chiropractors Association. Would you like to accept that position?" What do you do? I said, "Well, yes, sir." It's, but it was so funny. I mean, I was like, "Oh my God, it truly is him." And it was, I was thrilled. And he appointed me, and I was then served for a very long time on the RA and as a secretary of the RA for 10 years. And so that was, but he was a wonderful
That would
person
be
and a brilliant friend and a brilliant mind in chiropractic.
that would be definitely a shocking moment. That would be a moment to remember.
For
Wow.
Dr. Barge is on the phone. Oh yeah, right.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I
sure.
could have been in practice 3 years, and he was somebody that he was literally, and it was like as if BJ had called at,
Let's
with
say
the
this
same
too
kind of
about
issue. Let's
about
get
all
back to
these
work. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
books, but the importance of the books that are the green books, absolutely, we value them greatly. But the books by Fred Barge, extremely important. We should be read by chiropractors. They are books written by chiropractors that were chiropractors, and they mean it. And that's why, just saying these things, it is so important. What he's writing, the reason you're freedom from fear, what are you going to lose? You have to serve the people. Get out of your own way, so because the people deserve you. And that's what I got from freedom from fear. It enhances our lives. Same with BJ Palmer. Get out of our way, get out of that educated, live that innate life. It's going to guide you in the right direction when we listen to it. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I have one right here too. This is another one, Rational Bacteriology by Werner, Wyant, and Watkins. Dr. Watkins signed this one. Oh, yeah. My compliments. I wasn't born yet back when this came out, so he didn't sign that to me. It's Peekskill, New York, 1953. I was born in 1969. And these guys were changing the world. They were educating people. And, Werner, he also wrote Rational bacteriology. The other one is the chiropractic. Oh, it's another one from chiropractic. Bob Crystal had it republished and a beautifully bound hardback book, another from Werner. It's called, oh, I can't think of the name of it. I have a copy of it though. Pasquale gave it to us. But Bob Crystal, I wish he was here tonight and could tell us about it because it was such an important book. But there's a lot of these books written by amazing chiropractors. The new stuff is good too. There's some people putting on some good stuff. Steve Judson, I mean, his books are amazing. I just got a case of his new books to give out to people in the office, called The Backpack.
Strauss's books and his discussions of the green books is the blue books he calls them.
I have the whole set of all of his books. And for a while he wasn't making it in hardback. And there was a couple that I hadn't gotten. And then he made them again and I grabbed them as fast as I could. But you can get all his stuff on CD and they're a good price. I mean, he wants the information out there. And he usually sends, I have a bunch of CDs that of his podcast, basically when we called it a radio show. He just sent them to you. What do you want? Give them to your patients, hand them out, take them. And I still have some stacks, and I've left over, and I was giving them out for a really long time. Nobody has CD players anymore.
You can play them. Well, yeah, I recently got a new laptop that doesn't even have a disc in it anymore, but I got a player to be able to plug into it to be able to put CDs on
it. You have to. But even in the car, like my wife's new car does not have a place to put in a CD to listen to audio.
Nope.
Nope. I gave a student one. He goes,
"You got to download it to your phone and play it on Bluetooth."
Exactly. But that is why we're doing this too. You realize. So we're getting this into the digital world. We're reading it. We're discussing it. We're talking philosophy, reading from the masters himself. That's why we're doing DDBJ, okay? And we're not doing so many of the other books, but they're so worth mentioning, okay? Because a lot of people are, people are listening to this from around the world, and we want to make sure and we're open for questions. I haven't heard from anyone in a little while, but would you mind reading the foreword of this book, Alan?
Sure. I'm good.
Thank you.
This is the foreword, and it's by David D. Palmer, which was BJ's son, and there's been a lot of discussion about him, and I think recently on the chiropractic history page, Joe Foley's been defending him and saying, there's a lot of misinformation about David. Anyway, so this is the foreword, and it says, "My father, BJ Palmer, put together the manuscript of this volume over a relatively short period of time, actually not more than a year. Most of it was written or assembled during the early morning hours of 5 to 8 a.m. during the last year or two of his life at his home in Sarasota. However, it should be quickly noted that these thoughts and conclusions were not only of these days, but the result of over 60 years close study and experience of the profession he headed and developed. BJ had his sorrows, frustrations, and hardships typical of all pioneers in establishing a new philosophy, especially a new drugless healing science. Yet he had moments of the highest happiness and satisfaction, such as goes along with the personality of a genius. No man can be great unless he gives up thinking about his pleasures and peace of mind. A mind so dedicated to a new thought must be closely in touch with the higher source of strength and inspiration to endure what is hard and painful road to travel. There are many obstacles to the proper awareness of any new philosophy due to either lack of interest or prejudice in a static world of complacent thinkers. My father had a greatness that belonged to a life spent struggling in his own inimitable way against monopolistic influences unwilling to accept an allied healing art. BJ followed his course, that drew loyal followers and critics alike, who questioned his motives and methods, yet he stood fast to his convictions of what he knew was right for the preservation of chiropractic's philosophy, science, and art. This volume, number 39, the last written by BJ, aptly expresses his hopes and aspirations. Signed, D.D. Palmer.
And that, that's nicely written about his father. And, you know, there, you grow up in the family, there is the talk of, all the work and everything that's gone through these things. You can't judge the administrator, the third man coming in, just like you're saying about Daniel David Palmer. And, it's standing on the shoulders of giants. How do you live up to that as a child, right?
Yeah.
Also, carrying the torch, and then there's different things running in the world going on. I have
And you
this,
follow a personality as big as BJ's.
or Dee Dee, you
Yeah.
know, and Dee Dee. Those are, man rode an elephant through the street. There's my dad riding an elephant. Jeez, So, that's it's pretty amazing. These guys, it's an amazing life they live. It's interesting. We don't see a lot of pictures of now that I'm thinking about it. Daniel Palmer is like a teenager, or we don't see them at that age. Small, I've seen him like he's a little kid, but I've never seen any when he's growing up. And then all of a sudden, I think in my consciousness, and then all of a sudden he's running the school. Because I've only seen that little guy. But interesting. Have you ever seen any?
I don't recall, no.
No. Would you like to read this next section, the first chapter?
I will do my best to do this justice.
We'll go, a page or two. I think we're the dots at the last paragraph on page 4.
Okay, then give us a couple of things to talk about, and we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, we might have
Sounds
something
good.
in between.
That's fine. So just to review, we're reading our masterpiece, volume 39 by BJ Palmer. This is the first chapter, called The Natural Law. Man is the living expression of the epitome of natural normal law. The law of reproduction of the human race is and has been controlled and directed by natural law. Regardless of caprices and idiosyncrasies, of theoretical vagaries, of, quote, scientific researchers, unquote, centuries have not changed them. Chiropractic succeeds in getting sick people well because it recognizes constants of law in living man, corrects interferences with those constants in living man, and then allows the law itself in living man to reestablish its health constant in living man. I think that's an important paragraph. It's a reiteration of serious thoughts. We're remembering this is the last thing he wound up writing, and he's writing things down that are important to him, not necessarily knowing that he's dying, but he's codifying things here one more time and saying things that are important. And this is the first thing he puts in his book. Chiropractic succeeds in getting sick people well because it recognizes constants of law in living man, corrects interferences to those constants in living man, and allows the law itself in living man to reestablish its health constant in living man.
Let me read that, because where he just said about all the capitals that BJ puts in here, I'm going to read just the capital words. Okay. Living chiropractic living chiropractic in the law, in living man, nature. The law in man is nature. Chiropractic is part of the it in nature, in the living man. Those are all capitalized. He's doing a lot through here, but just reading that, it just pushes it home of, I think what they're really trying to do is get us in that service mind. You have a big mission to do as a chiropractor. So I like that. Thank you.
Well, it says what it's saying here, if we think about it, it's what we talked about before. Chiropractic, he says, it recognizes constants in law and living man. The law is spirit. It's the laws of the universe he's talking about here.
Yes.
In living man, where the spirit within dwells, the law is enforced and acted upon, acts in living man, when the living man has things that go on in him that interferes, then chiropractic works to reset and allow that, to remove that, help remove that interference, assist that process to allow the expression again of the natural law to be expressed fully. And that's all we do.
Absolutely.
And
And
that's
just
plenty.
before those big caps are italics, okay? And he's talking about it recognizes constants of law in living man.
That's
Constants
universal. That's
in
universal. That's universal. Right.
that's universal. Is the constant. It's the universal constant of God. That is the constant. So he had to take that and he put those in italics because it is so, and above that, natural as well. We understand that natural that is the constant. Nature is actually the constant. That is what is driven from the universe. Absolutely. There's a lot in those two paragraphs.
The universal laws are the constants, and are and they're unsolicitous. But when they're interfered with, when there's things going on in the body that don't allow the forces from above down, which he comes to later on in this section, I believe, that above down, that when there's an interference with the transmission of that information, then that's where we get to step in and say, what can I do to help allow that transmission to be restored in a normal fashion?
That is, it's the mission. We need to get this one paragraph out because what we just broke down, I have never heard ever before in chiropractic broken down in that way from anyone else. And it is absolutely what he is doing. We just deciphered BJ. I mean, to me, I'm dumbfounded of what we just figured out, you guys. You know
We can
that,
go
Billy
home. I
Allen?
mean, we can go home now.
Yeah, we can go home now. We finally figured out BJ Palmer. Oh, that's great.
Easy there, boy.
Oh,
We're
but
having
it's
much too much fun
hilarious.
tonight.
It is hilarious. We have been reading Green Books, you realize, for almost 3 years now. Every Tuesday, we were Thursday at one point, but really just deciphering a little bit of the code today feels good.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, and that's what I said. This paragraph is an important paragraph that he wrote.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the first virtually the first paragraph in the book, and it's laying down the law. It says this is what we do. This is what it's about.
The natural law is the title of the paragraph of the chapter. Okay, and
Right.
it says it right there. Man, the darkest, biggest capital M, the next, and then is the living. Those are all caps, and then and then giant caps living. He's giving expression in here. It's expression. It's artistic. I have to say, it's actually very artistic, isn't it? I mean,
It's also that line where man is the living expression of the epitome of natural and normal law is
yes,
again something we've talked about before,
God made
where
man in his own
we
image.
that we've talked about the expression and growth from a single cell up through multi-cell animals and into organisms, into organs within organisms, into and we at this point, as far as we're concerned, and not knowing what may be on other planets someplace else, are the highest development that's happened in that process, and that this is the expression, the epitome of natural and normal law is man.
Yeah. To me, I see that as, of course, I always put it in a spiritual way, is that natural and normal living. This is God's embodiment in earth as it is in heaven. And, God making man in his own image, the normal and natural law, the living expression. So, yeah, that's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Should we read a little bit more?
Sure. All right. Uh, we are told nature heals, nature cures, give nature time. Can any man from outside in, below up, the quote, scientific researchers, unquote, stimulate or inhibit nature and cause a cure to come artificially, thus changing the pattern of the cause of constants of law in living man. The reverse of this is embodied in the chiropractic philosophy, science, and art. Chiropractic knew, we knew, there is and has and was a law at work in living man which could, would, and did get him well. In exact ratio, as we eliminated variables, we established constants, and we established constants. Chiropractic researchers located and cooperated with the law in living man. Because man is the prolonged continuation of the constants of law of being, is the reason why chiropractic has been the success it has and is, because chiropractic works with the eternal, natural, internal law of living things. Chiropractic is simple and single. A chiropractor is a simple and single exponent of the constancy of the constants working with law within living man.
With chiropractic, with chiropractor, with and within, all in caps. You know, the chiropractor works with the within, not the without, but it works with the within. And that, I think, is as within, so without, the Bible says. Pasquale used to reiterate that all the time. You know, as we are in here, we'll see it out there. We're the projectors of our universe, of the world that we live in. And, you know, chiropractors work with the within, not with the fake world out here in the fictitious thing, but the one that is the real, the law that we just read above is actually within. That's where the laws really are. Interesting. That's what I get from that. I'm really enjoying, see this, you guys have to realize, I've just went through probably about 7 or 8 green books, not reading the whole things, but where are we going to go next? Where are we going to go next? What are we doing? Alan's been going through, 1910 still. I went through a whole bunch of it again. I didn't feel like starting anywhere on there. So we put it on pause for a while. We'll get back to 1910. We have the rest of our lives to get through all 1,000 pages. We're in 150, you know? so this one I grabbed, I was like, you know what, let's look at it. I haven't given it enough love in my chiropractic lifetime. And I started thumbing through it. And there's just a lot of really good chiropractic value. And then also, I say intuitive value for the man or the woman serving chiropractic. So I'm happy we're in this book now. Alan, what'd you get out of that last section?
He summarizes and he says, chiropractic is simple and single. Chiropractic is a simple and single exponent of constancy of constants working with the law within living man. We work with what's within. It's inside out, not outside in, that allows health to be restored in people that have ease to be restored in chiropractic terminology. When we have dis-ease, a loss of the components because there's been interference between the intelligence in our innate intelligence and the external parts of the various parts of our body where the information's been transmitted, it's been interfered with and doesn't get there right, and that causes a breakdown because the wrong, insufficient information, too much or too little, it causes a problem. And when we are able to allow that proper information and transmission of the natural information, the natural laws of healing that occur within us, then that's what more could we ask for in our life to be able to help people with that.
I mean, it's a calling. That's why it's not a profession. You know, it's truly a calling, and not everybody's breaking things down like this. And I realize, 20, 30
A
years
lot
from
of
now,
folks never get, even can read this and miss it, or don't even get. Some people never get exposed to even the concepts of this. The great orators and
right.
teachers are, We don't have a
but
Fred
we are.
Barch today, unfortunately.
We have it. We have BJ right here, and we're doing it right now.
Yep.
It's why we're doing it, because we're getting it. A lot of people aren't reading as much book wise, paper wise. So we're getting this, and it'll be on all the places people listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and then we have it on YouTube. And so we'll have this forever.
I just finally got my chiropractor to go look this up.
Good.
So he's going to start listening.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And we're putting this down for the ages because this is timeless. He wrote this, what is this, 1963, 1961, and it's timeless information. My jaw is almost like dropping, like, whoa, the way he's putting it, it's code. I mean, someone said his ring recently was a 33rd degree Mason, and you can't wear that unless you really are, right? And so there's a lot of code in this writing that we're reading right now, Alan. Just like they say, I'm not a Mason, but I understand they do a lot of code writing and different things that way. Pretty interesting if you really just think about it, looking at our own history and where this is coming from, on whom it is coming from, and where. I mean, in Davenport, Iowa, think about, that whole area with D.D. Palmer. You have the Seventh-day Adventists began in that area. You have Mormonism happening in that area. Not Science of Mind. Maybe Ernest Holmes was there too. I'm not sure. Wasn't probably very far away, but a lot. And then chiropractic, all this spiritual stuff happening in the Midwest. This is the way I look at it. All that energy, spiritual energy, all was there for D.D. Palmer to have chiropractic. It was all to support D.D. Palmer. So we have this amazing thing, chiropractic, right now. But if we look at all of the history, everything, there's a lot of, happening in this part of the world and these people. So I value this time of picking it apart and breaking it down and all this type of stuff, Alan. So I truly appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, and on the other side of it is that a lot of it's very clear and simple. We're breaking it down and digging into it. But if you look at it, a lot of it is very simple and clear. You can get it just by reading the words. And
right.
as we discuss it, there's more to it.
There's more to it. Exactly. When you delve a little deeper. Well, we did a lot tonight, okay? And I'm really excited to dig in this book. We're going to start on page 4 next week, okay? Of this same book. I want to continue. Would you agree, Alan, to continue more in this book? Okay, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. We'll have, we'll post this up as soon as possible. And next Tuesday, we're back on again. All right?
We'll try and get some other folks to join in.
Yeah. Hey,
although I had a great time with you
no
tonight.
Distractions tonight. Right? I think we did everything that came out really well, and it was an awesome night, and I appreciate you, Alan. See you later, and good night.
Thank you, Haig. Good night.